Hi, thank you for joining us for Law Talk Friday. My name is King Wong. I'm a staff attorney with Lone Star Legal Aid's Texarkana branch office. Joining me today is a guest from Community Health Corps, Wallace Reveille. He is a former veteran. He's a veteran. He serves as a housing housing specialist with the Community Health Corps, working with veterans. And also joining me is my colleague, Elizabeth Ewing, a staff attorney from our Paris office. Before we begin our presentation, this presentation is intended to serve as legal information and does not replace any legal advice. Please contact Lone Star Legal Aid at 1-800-733-8394 or go to our website at lonestarlegalaid.org for more information on legal assistance. Lone Star Legal Aid does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, gender expression, sexual orientation, age, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, or military status in any of its activities or operations. With that being said, I'd like to ask Wallace to tell us more about himself and what he does with Community Health Corps.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Wallace Reveille, and I'm a United States Air Force Desert Storm veteran. And after I retired, I joined up with Community Health Corps as a healthcare navigator with the East Texas Veterans Resource Center. You can find our website, Help for Vets, that's FOR, help4vets.com. And I did the healthcare navigator job for a while, trying to connect veterans with both the VA healthcare and, if they were ineligible, healthcare in the community. After that, after about 10 months of that, I was promoted to supervisor of the program, and I've been doing that for about 6 months. Now we have two physical locations, one in Texarkana on College Street and one down in Longview at 501 Pinewood Street. And essentially, we have several grants. Our first grant is a federal grant through the Supportive Services for Veterans Families with the VA. And what this grant does is it allows us to perform what we call rapid rehousing. That is, we take veterans that are literally homeless. Either they have lost their housing or they've been without housing for a while, and they're either they're on the street, or they're bouncing between family members' homes, or they're in a shelter. There's a situation where they do not have a home of their own. And with that rapid rehousing program, we can quickly get them an intake done. If they qualify as far as income limits, then we can work on getting them placed into housing. Now, those income limits vary by county. It's based on the area median income of a particular county. And because all the counties are different, I can't give you each of the numbers, but if you contact the facility for an intake, they can do that. Now, also, we can serve veterans in this program other than dishonorable. So we can't serve dishonorably discharged veterans, but barring that, we can. Now, the second program that we have through SSVF is the homelessness prevention. And what this program does is allows us to take veterans that are renting and they're behind on their rent, or they've had some sort of calamity or some sort of disaster in their lives, and they don't have the money to pay the rent, and we can help them with the rent. Once again, there has to be an intake. They can't be dishonorably discharged. They can't be over the median area income percentage. There's a limit, and they have to be renting. So we can pay their rent. Now, we can also, on both of those programs, once we get a veteran housed, additionally, I want to say something about the rapid rehousing. Once we get the veteran housed, we can pay the utility deposit. We can pay the first month's utility. We also, through the United Way, have a grant where we can buy household startup goods, including beds, for veterans that say they may come from the street with just a backpack or not even that. So we can get all the things that they need: microwave, vacuum cleaner, pots and pans, plates, knives, forks, cups, all these things that they need to make their house a home. And but with homelessness prevention, all those things are, the veteran already has those. And so we're just trying to prevent, because can you imagine if you were about to lose your home, think about all the things in your home. So if you're going to go from having a home to being homeless, you're going to lose a lot of the things you've accumulated. So we're trying to prevent that. Additionally, as far as the utilities, it's electric, it's water, it's gas, it's those primary utilities. Now, the next grant that we have, and I'll come back in just a second and tell you some more about SSVF, but I want to talk about homelessness services first. So I've got to move to a different grant that we have through the Texas Veterans Commission. Now, this is a state grant. The Texas Veterans Commission is funded through the governor's office, and other means and sources. And the Texas Veterans Commission grant that we have is just for homelessness prevention. Also, they have to be renting, but with this one, they cannot take dishonorable discharge, and they cannot take bad conduct discharge. But the good thing about them, though, is that it's 20% above area median income. So, for example, in Gregg County, their limit is around 80,000. So you can imagine if a veteran's income is 80,000, yet they still have calamities from time to time, that money may be tied up and they can't pay their rent. Well, then we can come in and we can help with that. In addition to helping veterans with that program, we also help dependents and surviving spouses. Now, the key to helping a surviving spouse is that he or she cannot have remarried. So if they were married to a veteran and the veteran has passed away, if they've not remarried, then we can assist them. If they got a divorce and they got remarried, we can't assist them. That they have to be, the veteran has to be deceased and the person cannot have remarried. Now, with the Texas Veterans Commission grant, in addition to electricity and gas and water, we can also pay for telephone services as long as it's not prepaid. The way we do things is the utility company sends a bill, and then we cover the bill, and then our agency is reimbursed. We draw down funds to do that, so it can't be prepaid. We can also do internet, same kind of situation. And the reason that we do these things is that many of the veterans that we have are older. They may be connected with the healthcare, and because of the pandemic, they can't get out as much. They couldn't go into their appointments. And so the internet access allows them to do telehealth and things like that, get access to things that they otherwise would not have. In addition, many of the schools were closed, or the students were doing virtual learning. And so veterans' families needed a way sometimes, especially if they didn't, they lost their job or their income had been reduced. So we could do that. And those were seen as essential utilities at that time. So the combination of the Supportive Services for Veterans Families federal grant and the TVC state grant allows us to do a lot of things with veterans either homeless or at risk. Now, in addition, we do something we call emergency housing. Now, we only do this for veterans that have children or dependents, small children. Essentially, what we do is if they are going to be literally homeless, in other words, if they're going to be under a bridge, we'll take them and put them in a hotel. We can keep them in this hotel for up to 45 days. Normally, it doesn't take that long while we go through the process of trying to rehouse them. We don't do this for single unaccompanied veterans, but for children, veterans with children, we'll do that. Now, another component of SSVF, it's a service, is the Healthcare Navigator Service. And essentially what that means is that veterans that are homeless or at risk, and they may have healthcare needs, they may not have been connected with the VA. There's a lot of stress. Mental health needs have increased over the last couple of years. And so we try to identify those and get the veteran connected with either VA medical care or community health care if they can't do VA. And we also have a program called Shallow Subsidy. And what the Shallow Subsidy program does is that once we have a veteran housed, whether they came literally from off the streets or whether they were at risk of being homeless, once we get those veterans stabilized, several months of stabilization, then we can enter into an agreement with the veteran that we will pay 50% of their rent for 24 months. So say the veteran's rent is $800 a month. We'll pay $400 a month for 24 months, and the veteran will pay $400 for 24 months. The idea behind this being and now the veteran has disposable income to spend on food or medicine or things that they might have had to skip meals or go without medication because their rent was so high. So it's an attempt to pass on that savings to the veteran. And hopefully over the period of the 2 years, the veteran can find more affordable housing. They can get out of that situation. Finally, for SSVF, we're now involved in legal services where we've received some money from the Veterans Administration, and we're trying to contract with local attorneys and law firms to sort of enter into an agreement where if a veteran has a legal issue, then we can refer that veteran to that attorney or law firm who can then represent the veteran, resolve their legal issue, and then our organization pays the attorney bill, and then is reimbursed by the VA. A lot of times veterans have criminal issues that will prevent them from renting a place, or they'll have credit problems on their credit report. So there's a whole host of issues that need to be taken care of. Now, the third program that we have is called Military Veteran Peer Network. And what the Military Veteran Peer Network is a contract through the Department of Health and Human Services of Texas. And what the coordinator does, the staff member of that program is the peer services coordinator, is that he engages veterans in the community and veteran organizations in the community with education, with military cultural competence education, with mental health first aid, try to help agencies and people in the community sort of learn the particular the sort of best practices and how to deal with veterans, and particularly veterans with problems. He is involved in a Veterans Treatment Court in Gregg County, where he liaisons and acts as an advocate for the veterans in that program, which is essentially a situation where a veteran, if he doesn't have an extensive criminal history, he gets involved in a dispute with a law. He gets in trouble with the law, and this could be related to PTSD or maybe a substance use disorder that the veteran had as a result of undiagnosed and untreated trauma or other problems. And the courts try to work with the veteran. And if he successfully completes the program, which could be from, say, 6 months to even 2 years, then the court has the option to lay the charges aside so the veteran doesn't have a record. So it's a wonderful opportunity for veterans to sort of make amends for something that they've done wrong, but still be recognized that this problem originated. The veteran has other issues. And so in addition to that, we also have a situation where we have donated funds. Individuals or organizations can donate to the Community Health Corps Foundation, and part of this money can be used or set aside for the veterans program. We've had situations where, particularly, and we would usually do this for veterans with children. Unaccompanied veterans, we refer to food pantries and things like that. But if there's a veteran family and they have children and there's a situation arise and say they couldn't cover their food costs for that month, well, then we'll step in and we'll give some donated funds to make sure they have food, get them connected, and try to figure out what happened and make sure it doesn't happen again. So we have a host of services, and essentially anybody who comes to our facilities, we try to work that veteran's problem and get them assistance. If we can't do it, if we don't have the means, or we're not allowed under the rules that we have, then we refer this person to organizations that can help. Also, we're involved with collaboration with community agencies, where if a veteran goes to another community agency, for example, a good example is the homeless shelters. The homeless shelters have a working relationship with us, and that when they identify those veterans, they can reach out to the local case managers so that we can quickly try to get those veterans housed. Now, this is a twofold benefit. Number one, the veteran gets housed and now he's more stable and his mood is better. But also we free up that bed in that shelter for another person who may not have been able to get shelter. So by getting the veteran housed, we sort of do a double good there. I want to give you the Veteran Crisis Line and then tell you a little bit about another grant that the team is working on right now.
Oh,
The vet-
Wallace, before you give us that information, what is the best way, what's the eligibility for a veteran
Okay.
to your programs? Could you explain that to us?
Okay, we have various programs, but essentially, in order to be eligible for the housing assistance, they have to have been active duty, which means they had to be under federal orders. Either they were in the active forces. Now, sometimes reserves and even guardsmen can get services if they were activated and deployed under federal orders and they completed their contract. So if a reservist was called up, he went and he did a tour in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it was, and he completed that and he was then rotated back to the reserves or the guard, then he or she would be eligible. So they have to have served active duty time. Now there's a different, with us, as long as they have 1 day of active duty service, they're eligible for the housing. Now there's a confusion sometimes because with VA healthcare, after a certain year, the veteran had to do 2 years on active duty. So many guard and reserve, and even many active duty, if they got early outs or were discharged even under medical or general, are often not eligible for VA healthcare. And so they could be eligible for housing, but not VA healthcare. But if those veterans come to us and they have healthcare needs, we're going to try to assist them to meet those needs. Now, income wise, it has to be, you have to be what's called very low income or low income or very low income, which means you have to be a certain percentage under the area median income for the county. Every year, the Housing and Urban Development people put out a amount of money that they consider low income, and the veteran has to be under that. It's different for every county and it's different every year. It fluctuates. So part of the intake process is making sure that they meet the income. Now, I will also say this, the more people in the veteran's family. So if it's the veteran, his spouse, and 3 kids, that's going to be 5 family members. And so the income limit is much higher for 5 people than it would be, for example, just for 1 veteran. And they cannot have a dishonorable discharge. And in some cases, for example, for the TVC program, they cannot have a bad conduct discharge. Those things would make them ineligible for the program.
And what was the number that they could call, that a veteran can call to apply for your services?
Okay, well, the best number to call that I'm going to give you now is 903-932-6255. That's my direct number. That's the supervisor number. And the reason I give you that number is because depending on where you live in the catchment area, and I'm going to list these counties if I may. We serve Lamar County, Red River, Bowie, Titus, Morris, Cass, Camp, Upshur, Marion, Harrison, Gregg, Smith, Rusk, and Panola. Now, 2 of those counties, Smith County and Lamar County, the TVC grant does not cover. And one of the things that we're working on, and our TVC grant was renewed. And so one of the things that I'm going to work on is doing an amendment and trying to get those 2 counties added. So the best number to call is my number, 903-932-6255, and I'll get you connected to where you need to go. Now, there's another thing that I want to talk about that's it's not a program that we have right now, but it's a program that I'm working on. And the team is working on applying for a grant for suicide prevention. And I want to give you this crisis line number because the official number, the average is about 22 veterans a day we lose to suicide. However, it was pointed out to me recently that if we counted the number of veterans that have undiagnosed and or untreated mental health and substance use conditions that we lose as a consequence to those kinds of things, the number would probably be twice that or more. So the crisis line number is 1-800-273-8255. And for veterans, press 1. Now they are coming out with another crisis line, a newer crisis line, but it's not online yet. But that goes back to one of the things that Ken does with MVPN is he also teaches a suicide prevention program called ASK. And if you're interested in taking any of Ken's programs, just call my number and I'll get you connected to Ken. And all these programs are designed to promote the well-being and the wellness and the health, the mental health, and the stability of veterans and their families. Many times we forget that if you have a veteran that is suffering, and they not necessarily had to go into combat, because most veterans have been exposed to some sort of trauma, and some are more or less resilient. And so you really don't know, and it's not sometimes until years later when the symptoms start to show up, the veteran begins to age, and they just couldn't sort of cope with it as well as they could when they were younger. And so veteran family members, if you've ever had a family member who's had a substance use problem or a mental health condition or some unresolved trauma, this is difficult for the family. So we keep the families in mind, and we also want to connect them. So they're just as much a part of the veteran community as the veteran themselves. So much of our effort is aimed at trying to assist these people. We have people call, for example, a mother called, and she was placed in a nursing home. And of course, she's concerned that eventually that she'll pass away, and then what's going to happen to her son? He's going to be homeless. So connecting us with the names and numbers of veterans, even like that, that they're on our radar, so to speak, or we're sort of taking proactive stance in dealing with veterans and their problems.
Oh, Wallace, how do you help veterans find housing?
Okay, what happens is this. If they're literally homeless, say they're living the stereotypical, they're living under a bridge, or they're in a shelter, they have no permanent housing. Usually we have done outreach, and we have engaged we had a landlord engagement board recently, and the case managers are very good at reaching out and connecting to property owners and landlords and property managers, the apartment complexes, in some cases, people that are, it's everything from duplexes to people that have houses for rent. And we collect a resource list. So we're always keen on looking at and watching and even encouraging the construction of new housing, especially affordable housing, particularly for the elderly, because the veteran population is aging. So when the veteran comes in, usually we will instruct them, or we will suggest to them, hey, begin to look around, because it's always about veteran choice. We're never going to tell a veteran, hey, you've got to go live here, or you've got to go live there. We assist the veteran, we give them the information, and we sort of advocate for them to the landlord, or I've filled out applications before, and I've gone and talked to landlords. So we assist in this process, trying to get this, get the paperwork done, and we've paid for application fees, things like this. So we just sort of facilitate the veteran to get into the place. And also, if we keep a very good working relationship with the landlords, then many times we can help resolve problems that the veteran may have. So that's how we assist in trying to get that. And also, we communicate with the VA has a program called HUD-VASH. It's Housing and Urban Development Veteran Assisted Supportive Housing. So when the veterans come in, we let them know about this program. And many of the veterans are qualified. They end up qualifying for this. And what a HUD-VASH voucher does is that once they find a place to live, before they sign a lease, they can get this inspected by HUD. And if it passes and the VA awards them a voucher, then the VA will pay a percentage and the veteran pays a percentage, much like our shallow subsidy. And then this voucher follows the veteran. They don't lose it unless they don't pay their rent, their half, their part, but they keep this voucher. It's a very good program. It keeps them housed much, much, much longer. So we do it basically by getting out there and meeting in person and over the telephone, and just aggressive outreach in the community to find housing and to get housing for the veterans.
I have a question for you, Wallace.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the landlord engagement board and that caseworkers really get out there and help with applications and
Mhm.
talk to landlords to keep those good relationships. For us, we see a lot of people, individuals, even veterans who have disabilities due to their service. Is
Mhm.
that something that y'all bring up with the landlords for like reasonable accommodations and whatnot, like a service animal or?
Right. We discuss those issues, and we're always very interested in like for example, I know there's landlords that have placed a veteran on a ground floor, for example, or the landlord knows, beginning in the application process, we talk about the limitations that the veteran has and the problems that the veteran has. So yes, and then also the healthcare navigator is a big part of that in encouraging the veteran if they need, for example, some occupational therapy or some thing to help them or medication. So yes, it's a very important part. Now, there have been veterans who have asked us to make modifications to assist them in making modifications, like putting handrails. Well, we can't compel a landlord to alter their property, but I'm of the opinion of if that gets done and we improve that, then it's actually a boon to the landlord, because if that tenant moves out, now they have this particular unit that has these features. So we're always interested in trying to do that as much as we can. That's an excellent question. Thank you.
Would that be a scenario like you said, maybe a landlord would refuse to do a modification? Is that something that you would make that referral out to an attorney for your legal services contract?
Now that I'm not sure of, because I think it would probably be prior to them signing. Now, if it occurred while they were living there, it
Mhm.
might be different. But I think the situation is, in this case, this person was living there. And that's a good question. I'm unaware if the landlord, I don't know if in the lease, the landlord would have to make the modifications. Now, if a veteran, now that's a good question. What you ask is a great question, because if a veteran, so here's the way we do this. Here's my concept of this legal issue. If a veteran came to me and said, "Hey, Wallace, I'm living here and I need a rail in the bathroom or whatever. I need to have some modifications," and the landlord won't do it, I want to take them to court. I want legal assistance. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare a brief or a summary, and I'm going to send that to any legal partners that we have. Then, from my perspective, it's up to the attorney or firm to decide, am I going to take this case? In other words, if we have a partnership with an attorney or a law firm, they're not compelled. They just have the opportunity to represent. So if they realize, well, this is not something we can win, then they can always tell the veteran, look, we're not going to do this. But if they believe, okay, we'll take this case, even if they lose the case, we'll still pay for the services that were provided to the veteran.
Gotcha. Just as a side, the lease contract actually, even if it is a policy for, in the lease contract that they don't make modifications, if they can prove, they being the individual tenant,
Mhm.
and in this case, a veteran, if they can show that they do need the modification as long as they pay for it,
Ah,
it's both federal and state,
okay.
the ADA, and so there's a way to get the accommodation /
Okay.
modification.
Okay. Now there's one issue, and I'm glad, because here's my thing, and I've had this a couple of times. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a handwritten agreement between a landlord and a tenant is legally binding. In other words, this is a valid lease. However, in one of our programs, the conditions or the qualifications for supporting documentation says that nothing can be written in hand. It's So the one thing that I have kind of thought about is what if we have a veteran and this veteran is living in the location and they do an intake and they're asking for homelessness prevention services. They qualify, but the program is not allowed or they will not pay because the lease is not in writing. Is that something, could the veteran say, well, I'm going to get an attorney and say that, yes, I am eligible and you can't restrict me? I'm
Are
not
you-
sure.
As far as like the grant program to
Can the program conditions supersede or override the law? If the law says the lease is valid, but the program rules or regulations say that it cannot be handwritten, what if the veteran demands that he have legal representation? I'm not sure what I want to do in that case.
I don't know the answer to your question.
Yeah, that's something that would probably have to be on a case by case basis, and the veteran could reach out to our organization to see if and see if they're eligible for our services, and our organization would try to connect with them to to
Right.
help them on that. But generally, that's not something that I don't even know how to answer.
Well, we get a lot of, you would think that you don't get a lot of exceptions, but it's been my experience that the exception is more the norm than the regular, because everybody has a different, just like, and of course, there are certain situations, especially during the pandemic, during the height of COVID, when there was a question or a concern about can people be evicted, or for example, we had a situation where a landlord went and turned off a person's electricity themselves, and my understanding is that this is not that you're not supposed to be able to do this,
Yeah.
and some people ended up going to jail over that. And so these are the kind of things that we deal with. So, and it was the veteran that went to jail. So there's a situation where now does the veteran have a legal complaint or foot to stand on that, hey, you did something illegal and I went to jail. So
Wow.
there's all these kind of things that before we could not address because we didn't have the funding, and now we have money to put on these issues.
Well, you raised an interesting scenario. In Texas, a landlord cannot do self-help evictions. It's frowned upon. So there are, for tenants, whether they're veterans or not veterans, self-help eviction is not allowed, and they can get help to address that issue. And
We had
It's very, very restricted. You
Yeah.
have to really do everything to the T.
we had a veterans, and we have at the East Texas Veterans Resource Center, we host monthly events where veterans and organizations that are interested can come and meet as a coalition. And just this last one, we had a situation where, and I was educated on this, that if a person, veteran or not, has to have oxygen or they have some sort of medical, if you turn their electricity off, they may die. That there's a more lengthy process they have to go through. And I think a lot of times, and that's why the question or the issue with Elizabeth said, do you go over these kind of issues? And the answer is yes, and this is exactly why. Because we want the landlord to be a partner. We want everybody to sort of get along, but we want everybody to get a fair, we want the landlord to get paid. We want the veteran to stay housed. We want the utilities to get paid. And we want to try to make sure that everybody's cooperating, and if there are any problems, we sure want to help resolve those.
I think it's a great program.
Yes.
I've been taking notes.
And what kind of documentations do veterans need to provide to your organization when they apply?
That's another excellent question. Okay, and I'm glad you asked that. There's a form called DD 214, and every veteran knows what that is. That's his papers that says I'm free. He's discharged from the service. Now, I'll tell you what though, a lot of veterans, they're so happy, they're on their feet running, and that DD 214 gets lost in the next 10, 15 years. Now, what the veteran can do, and I'll tell all you veterans out there, as soon as you get out, go to your home record county clerk and get that DD 214 on file. But many veterans forget to do that. The VA now has a wonderful software program that some of us can get in touch with and get connected with, and it's called Squares 2.0. And what I can do with Squares 2.0 is if I can get the veteran's information, I can run his information through the VA, and within minutes, 5 minutes, I can generate a document that the VA will accept that will can be used to verify his identification. So we have to have veteran identification. Now, in addition to those things, a Texas driver's license with the word veteran on it. They can get their VA card. If they're connected with the VA, they can have it's a little VA card. They can use that. There's some other documents that they might need. For example, if they're homelessness prevention, they're going to need a lease. And even if they're in rapid rehousing, in order for us to pay for the deposit and to hook up the utilities and all these things, we're going to need a signed lease. So many landlords want their money first, but we can't do that. We have to have the lease signed before we can pay. Same thing with the utilities. So those kind of documents that we have to have them. The hardest one is the DD 214. We've resolved that with the Squares problem. But many times these leases are handwritten, and we did get a standard lease online, and we've got copies of this, and we give these out to the landlords and the veterans. But then we have to wait, and we're just up to them when they get that filled out and brought back. Now, income, because there's an income limit, they can use a VA award letter, they can use a pay stub, they can use a bank statement, as long as it's good faith and we can see that this is what this person is making, we can use those documents. So in general, those kinds of things, the standard sort of things that you would need. Now, if it's a spouse, and we are going to help the surviving spouse, they would need a marriage license, something that shows that they were married. They would also have to have, usually spouses will also get cards and identifying information. They're very similar to what the veteran has. So just an ID, the marriage certificate, of course, her proof of whatever income she's got, a lease that says that she actually lives there. There's one thing now, these bills and things like that, they cannot be altered, right? So if you bring us a bill that's been altered, we can't do that. It has to be the veteran. So here's the issue we run into. Okay, you'll have a veteran living in a place, but the water will be in the landlord's name, but the landlord charges the veteran for the water. We can't pay the water because it's not in the veteran's name. So electricity, gas, all those utilities, the phone, the internet, the phone, it all has to be in the veteran's name, and the bill has to have the veteran's name on it. Otherwise, we're not allowed to pay it.
What about with the rental assistance? How long is the rental assistance?
Okay, in COVID, it was waived. It's actually still waived. So as long as we have money, we can continue to assist the veteran. Now, ordinarily, and nobody knows when the Stafford Act is going to end, but the Stafford Act that was enacted when COVID reared up, and the American Rescue Plan funds, They're still available right now. We don't know when they're going to end. However, once they do end, there'll be a 90-day grace period. And after that 90-day grace period, the temporary financial assistance limits will all start back at base for any veteran already in the program. Ordinarily, we can do, depending on whether they're low income or very income, it's 6 months or 10 months in any 2-year period. Utility is less than that. We also have some other things. We can only do one deposit in a year's time. So if you get a situation where a veteran is moving a lot, they're bouncing around, we cannot continue to pay these deposits while the veteran moves. They kind of have to, so there's limits on that. So it's usually around 6 months to 10 months, but right now it's as long as we have money. And we have money out till probably September. And then we did get, our budget is about to be approved, and our program goes out till 2024.
And that rental assistance program is different from your shallow subsidy.
Yes. Okay. Now, shallow subsidy, what happens with shallow subsidy is once we have a veteran who is in the program and he's stable, he or she's stable, they've demonstrated they can pay their rent, they can pay their utilities, they really don't need us anymore. We will then approach that veteran and go, hey, and this is always voluntary. We don't involuntarily put them in this, but we say, look, how do you feel about us paying half your rent for 24 months? Normally, they're happy to have that done. And essentially what this does, they're already in the program. We're just sort of giving them a longer term assistance, but not just paying everything for them. We're sort of getting them into a situation where they can save up some money or they can improve the quality of their life. And actually they have found that it is cheaper to pay half a veteran's rent for 24 months than it is to rapidly rehouse somebody, that person to lose housing and need to be rehoused, and lose housing and need to be rehoused. The longer you keep them stable, the better they do over a period of time. And this is I guess what I call a no-brainer. It's the same thing in any kind of treatment program or any kind of program. The longer you stay stable, the better you do over the course of time.
What about, so the rapid rehousing, if you had a veteran who was homeless and they needed a place to stay and you housed them, would they also then be eligible for the shallow subsidy?
Yes, we consider those on a case-by-case basis. What I look at is once we get the veteran housed, there's a reason that they became homeless. Many times, and I've seen this, what happens is the veteran comes home and the lock on the door is changed, and the spouse has said, we can't do this anymore, and I need you to go away. Now the veteran is outdoors, and so if that person previously was stable and we get them housed and we know that they can do this on their own, something like that, it just improves the chances that they're going to be stable. Now I want to say this on shallow subsidy. We have a priority list, and our priority list is those that are disabled and are on more limited income, elderly veterans. So we have a situation where we're selective with shallow subsidy, and it's basically we want to try to make those that would probably become unstable over as time went by, they would deteriorate. We want to shore them up to where they actually go the other direction. And so we don't have that situation. So, but we do have a priority. That's another great question. And it's not offered to everybody, just that priority list. But where we have about 13 spots, 13 or 14 that we can take, and we're at about 6. So I need to get some more shallow subsidy. And I've told my case managers, hey, be on the lookout and let's start transitioning some of them to shallow subsidy, because especially in the coming months and years, I think it's going to be critical we don't want a situation where, and I'm gonna tell you something right now too. When we talk about the donated stuff and the stuff that Ken does with MVP and stuff outside of programs, every member of the staff, okay, is involved in assisting veterans in a general sort of way. So I'm gonna tell you this, we had a veteran who, he lived in a mobile home, and the mobile home park, they said, we don't want to renew your lease. We want you to take your trailer and go. Well, this veteran went to another mobile home park. He got everything set up. He got the lot rented, but he had no way to move the trailer. And he was going to lose his home and lose that trailer. Of course, they would have towed it and stored it somewhere. So for the price of 2 or 3 miles worth of gasoline and we had a volunteer bring their truck and pull this man's trailer about 2 miles, and this person kept his home. And that's all it took, that little bit of care, and a staff who never says, this is not my job, because a veteran is our job. That's our job as veterans. So it's, there was a man coming through on a motorcycle, and his motorcycle broke down. So just the price of a single a part on his motorcycle, and he was going to a job in Indiana or Illinois, can get that man on his way. I've had veterans call me, they're coming from California and they're moving to another county in Texas, not even our catchment area. And the lady told me that she was a heroin addict and she needed methadone treatment, and she wanted to know where the nearest methadone clinic was in the county that she was moving. So I researched all that and gave her the information, the phone numbers, and called them and told them about her. So those are the kind of things, just the extra care that you can give so that veteran, when they show up, they don't have to struggle to connect. That's called a warm handoff. We call that a warm handoff. And so those very important and critical things that we do, just to promote the wellness of veterans. And they've served their country, and not everybody came back a little bit damaged, but some people had a harder time adjusting. So those people, we want to understand, it's what we call trauma-informed care, in that not everybody, they were young and strong, and they got broken and they thought they healed, but later those wounds showed a little bit. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything. And housing is it's called housing first, but that doesn't mean we stop at housing. The case managers, many of these case managers have been here for years, and they form very close bonds with the veterans that they serve. We go to veteran events at the VFWs and the DAV and the American Legion, and we go to we form relationships with people that are involved with veterans, and so it becomes almost like a family or a community.
That's amazing. Especially with your story about that one man volunteered to tow the house.
Yeah.
He could have lost it otherwise.
Right. And those are the kind of things that the old statement, mankind is my business, veterans are our business. We want to do everything that we can for them. Now, we're not miracle workers, and we certainly, we can't do everything for everybody. But sometimes it doesn't take doing everything for everybody. And we can certainly do what we can. And we appreciate all the people that are involved in the community in serving veterans and in doing the little extra thing that they can.
I'm going to look and see if we have any questions in our chat.
Okay.
And we don't have any questions in our chat, but you have given us a lot of information, especially for our veterans out there. And I hope that they utilize your services. It sounds like you have a lot of great programs for our veterans out there. Again, I would like to state that anyone who is watching our talk today, if they would like some more information on how to get legal assistance with Lone Star Legal Aid, they can call our number at 1-800-733-8394 or go to our website at lonestarlegal.org. Wallace, thank you so much for giving us this valuable information. I want to wish you a great weekend and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate being here. You have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.